Okay, welcome to the screencast on Alexander in India. We've entitled this To the Ends of the Earth. Sorry this is a bit late. Two lessons put into one. There's a fly buzzing around my head and it's really annoying me, but I'm going to persevere. So, Alexander is up here after suppressing it in the northeast campaign and taking the rocky fortress of Sogdiana, and now he moves down into basically behind my head where northern India is. Now, the big question on Alexander's men's lips was, why on earth are we going to India? Rainforests, the monsoon rains, the high heat, the high humidity, snakes that will easily kill us, and these crazy monkeys, what the Macedonians thought were actually some sort of little people, and they believed as they're walking through the jungle they're under attack from these monkeys. And they actually tried to talk to them, according to Curtis Reffers. But so there doesn't seem for the men any logical reason why they're going to India. Why aren't they going home? They've gone so far east now, 12,000 miles east. Why aren't they going home to Macedonia? This is the question that keeps being repeated. And as I've been talking about, Alexander is not going home, and so his interests have split away from the men. So why did Alexander go into India? Look, I think at the base of it, it's just the thrill of it. The thrill of conquest, the thrill of killing, the thrill of more power, the thrill of more influence. That's driving Alexander on. This we know. He likes killing people and he likes conquering. And he's only going to keep on looking for more. There's also Darius did once rule an area of northern India. In the end, he actually returned it to the rulers of northern India because it became a bit too difficult, very, very fast sort of extension of his empire. But at one point, Darius had ruled northern India, so perhaps Alexander felt that as the king of kings, now the lord of the world, the king of Persia, he needs to rule that part as well. Thirdly, and underpinning it all is Alexander's pothos, that Greek word for the desire that drives one to keep on going, always going over the horizon, always seeing what's around the next corner. Alexander is going to keep on going. He's not going to stop. He's not going to be someone who's going to retire, put his slippers on and smoke a pipe in front of the fire and tell stories to his grandchildren. That's not going to happen. He's going to keep on going. That's his pothos. So that's driving him into India. And now there is a connection between Greece and India with the god Dionysus, the Greek god of theatre and of wine. Dionysus, according to legend, was actually born in India, born on a mountainside. And Dionysus was a great traveller, and he actually travelled to Greece where he became the god, as I said, of wine and theatre. So there is that clear connection. Now, Alexander knew of this, and his mother was a devotee worshipper of Dionysus, and Alexander always respected the gods. And when he came into the valley of the Kalash people, Alexander met the Kalash, who were worshippers of Dionysus, and they told Alexander that this is where Dionysus was born, and they took him to the mountainside and to the shrine where Dionysus was apparently born. Alexander was ecstatic that he had formed that connection with the Kalash people, and he would have felt closer to the gods now in the birthplace of Alexander. Remember, Alexander started to see himself as a god, and he sacrificed at the birthplace of Alexander on the mountainside and spent a couple of nights there with the Kalash people. Now, the story is really cool that there's an ongoing connection between Alexander and the Kalash people. Many of Alexander's veterans who were wounded and perhaps not so young anymore requested of Alexander permission to stay in the valley of the Kalash rather than carry on the campaign. Alexander granted them that. And so these soldiers, a few hundred of them, stayed and obviously intermarried with the Kalash people. And through the generations, you have the combination, the fusion, if you like, of the Kalash people and men of Alexander's army. And now the Kalash in northern India look like this. You can see there's, they're quite beautiful people with the striking eyes. The much fairer colouring of the Greeks has come through with the Kalash people of northern India, and they have quite distinctive European features. And we did watch this video. It's on YouTube. Michael Woods has a 4-minute video, his visit to the Kalash people and the story of their connection with Alexander's army. So that's quite a cool little link there. Then we come to the Rock of Aornus, where people were fleeing Alexander because he's a terrifying phantom. Oh, it's Miss Hines' coffee. It's not good. And they're fleeing Alexander, and so we have these refugees, men, women, and children, not wanting to fight Alexander. They take refuge on top of a very high mountain known as the Rock of Aornus. It's a flat plateau, and they see themselves quite safe. The problem for them was they didn't realize that Alexander, he's always wanted to outdo his ancestors, and legend, Heracles had attempted to take the Rock of Aornus and failed. So Alexander now sees that his pothos is driving him to outdo Heracles and take the Rock of Aornus. There's no great threat to him. There's no threat at all to Alexander, but he's going to do it. So local guides take them on a tortuous secret path, and they come up. It's very, very difficult for them. They went at night, and they came up on a different hillside opposite where the Rock of Aornus is. They could see it over the ravine. Alexander to cross the ravine. He felled a whole forest, and in 7 days filled the ravine in with the trees from the forest, and then his Macedonians were able to get over and attack the refugees on the Rock of Ionis. There was no resistance. The refugees tried to surrender, but they were massacred. Alexander's men actually drove them off the cliff face. Yeah, it is war crimes, isn't it? It's very, very similar to his action with the Brankaidi people in that village in Afghanistan, the town in Afghanistan, where they massacred these people who were pleading for their lives in Greek. And so we are seeing this of Alexander. So always make connections with Alexander's cruelty with something else he did that was equally as cruel. Then we come to the Battle of Hydaspes, which is out here, the far reaches of Alexander's empire. And King Porus, the ruler of the area, he's willing to face Alexander in battle. Alexander said, "Meet me at the border, then bring tribute." Porus said, "I'll be there and I'm ready for battle." Porus, by all account, was nearly 7 feet tall, and he rode into battle on a huge war elephant. And now the thing is that the Indians knew how to use elephants in warfare, and Porus had 200 of them, and he used them as a massive wall, like a huge sort of pachyderm tidal wave just advancing forward, which provided room for his men to go in and out to shoot the Macedonians. But also the Macedonians can't do what they did at Gaugamela. They can't just step aside, let elephants go through, because the wall is so dense that they're going to get done by the elephants. So they meet at the Hydaspes River, which is the border of Porus's territory, and Alexander fools Porus into shifting his forces. Alexander camped on the main point here, we say, and then for days rode men up and down the riverside here. And Porus over here, let's say, he camped opposite the main encampment of Alexander, but then seeing Alexander send horsemen up and down the river, he sends horsemen up and down the river too, until he gets sick of it, because every day Alexander's doing it, there's no obvious reason. Porus decides one day, "Oh, don't bother." And so on that day that Alexander's men, only a few hundred of them, able to cross the river. Porus believes that Alexander is leading it, so that must mean the whole army is crossed with him. So he brings his whole forces down to meet Alexander's few hundred, which allows the bulk of the Macedonian army to cross over. They've sandwiched, it's on the radio, they've sandwiched Porus between Alexander and Craterus, who's leading the bulk of the Macedonian army. A brutal, brutal battle. We watched the movie scene. The battle went for apparently 8 hours. And the Macedonians nearly lost. They were almost defenseless against the elephants. And indeed, by all accounts, Alexander's courage that eventually won the day. It's a good scene on the movie if you want to watch it. Alexander doesn't die, although he is wounded severely. Look, at the end of the battle, Porus is brought to Alexander. Alexander says, "How do you want to be treated?" And Porus says, "Like a king." And he's duly treated like a king. He's restored to rule his kingdom, and in fact Alexander adds extra territory to Porus's kingdom. And so we have similarities here when the family of Darius are looked after by Alexander. He's impressed by them, impressed by their dignity, and he was very impressed with Timoclea at Thebes. She'd killed her rapist. So he's very impressed by people who have a high dignity and are very sort of proud people. To celebrate, Alexander had these medallions or medals cast, showing Zeus here, Zeus, the victory of the eagle, and Alexandros written down here. And on the obverse is Alexander himself and an elephant sort of helmet, elephant's cape, obviously denoted in India. And so this links back to Alexander did the same thing in Egypt when the crowned pharaoh. He had himself on this obverse here with the horns of Amun, the chief god in the Egyptian pantheon. And so we're seeing these links. Alexander's really good at propaganda. And so that is flowing through. And as I mentioned, these coins have been found as far east as Korea. So Alexander knows the message will be spread from hand to hand. And so that was it. That's Alexander in India up to the Battle of Hydaspes. The next story is about a mutiny, which we're going to cover today on Thursday in class. Ka kite.